Well, if you've made it to watch this episode, you have officially made it to Friday. Congratulations. I'm Kate Pettersen, joined by Dave Pagnotta, and this is the latest on the fourth period presented by CCM Hockey. Dave, lots going on in the NHL, a busy Thursday night of action, and just one game on tap, a quiet Friday here, but lots to talk about around the league. Let's start in the West, and let's start with Calgary. I'm going to say it gently. They've been exceeding expectations, but they are sort of sliding back into reality in terms of where we thought that they would be this season. They're on the outside looking in, but they've got some pieces to move, some guys with term on their contract. If they decide to sell at some point, maybe later in the season, what could we be looking at there?
Yeah, you're right. They've come back down to earth, so to speak, and now Craig Conroy, their GM, has to navigate the trade waters with respect to what direction he wants to go in. They've got some pieces on expiring deals. Andrei Kuzmenko is kind of leading that charge up front. You've got Dan Vladar in goal, also on an expiring deal. Those are going to be two guys that are going to get talked about as the season moves along, closer to the March 7th trade deadline, but they have other pieces that have been making headlines for one way or another, that were available in the summer that teams are going to start to circle back on, or the Flames are going to start to explore as well. You've got Nazem Kadri at the center position up front, and you've got Rasmus Andersson on that back end, who will continue to draw significant interest from Calgary. He's got another year on his contract. He's got a little bit of protection, but he's a coveted asset for teams looking to shore up their blue line, especially in the top four, now and next season, not exclusive to a run this year because of the extra year on his contract. So I believe, at least in the summer, he was open to a change of scenery, wanted to see, and the Flames wanted to see how they would do this year. So it's something to look at from Calgary's perspective. Not going to be exclusive to guys on expiring deals. I think Craig Conroy's open to making additional moves. Plus, he also wants to kind of buy. They're going through their retool right now, and if they can find a young center in his mid-20s, that's going to be a piece that he would like to add. But that might be more achievable in the summer.
Well, you mentioned the word retool, and over in Buffalo, I think expectations where they'd be a little bit in a better situation right now than they are, and
Yeah.
maybe a little more committed to that retool. For Kevin Adams, what could they be up to over there? What do you think that they're going to be doing? Maybe it's not right away, but maybe at some point in January they're going to be looking to make some moves.
Yeah, they're a team that, from an expectations perspective, thought they'd be in a lot better of a position than they are right now towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference. They thought they would be a playoff contender, a wild card contender. That just hasn't worked out for them. And they're going to start looking at different options. They are right now in terms of trying to improve. And Kevin Adams, for the last couple of weeks, has been scouring the market and trying to comb it and see what pieces may be available. But outside of potentially moving out some of his expiring contracts later in the season, Jason Zucker and a few others, he wants to add. He wants to be in a position to improve his roster and his core now. This is, or get off the pot time for him and for the Buffalo Sabres. They need to start getting into playoff contention. That fan base deserves it as well. So we're going to see what they end up doing. I think Darren Dreger at TSN reported the other day that they're getting calls on Jack Quinn. We know Dylan Cozens is a point of interest and has been someone that teams have been poking around on since the summer. I don't know if they want to go in that direction, but if you want to make big, bold moves, you've got to deal out big, bold players. We could see some interesting stuff out of Buffalo later this season if they can find a way to do our traditional little hockey trade. But it looks like it's going to be a more impactful one if they can find the right pieces.
Continuing on the theme of retool, rebuild, there seems to be a lot of that going around the league this season in particular.
Yeah.
Over in Montreal, I think expectations were they'd be a little bit better than where they are now, sitting at the bottom of the East. What's going on there? Is Marty St. Louis in trouble, or is this just a young team and they've got to keep on going and figure it out? What do you think's going on there, and what do you think we could see from them?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation in Montreal because they're smack in the middle still, of their rebuild. But when the season started, the expectations were higher. Not that they would be a playoff contender, but that they would improve upon their lack of success, last season. It hasn't been the case. I don't get the sense Marty's in any danger right now, because of the roster construction. They're going to make changes later on this season. They're going to move out the rental type of players. Dvorak and Jake Evans is going to draw interest, and David Savard. We've talked about these pieces. Mike Matheson with another year in his deal. He's going to continue to draw interest as well. But this is, for the most part, a young team. In their 9-2 loss to Pittsburgh on Thursday, it was a very young defense on that team. Other than Mike Matheson, everybody else very young, very still raw in the National Hockey League. So there are going to be growing pains. But the Habs are going to be focused on continuing to deal with this core and build up this young roster and give their younger guys more of an opportunity to play consistent minutes. If we do see anything big out of Montreal, it's likely to be from trading guys out and getting additional assets in. That doesn't mean they want to continue to stockpile the cupboard with draft picks and prospects. What they may do in the summer, and we've seen this before, utilize those assets, take the picks, package them up, and get NHL caliber players now. That's probably a part of the plan. Move out pieces now, insulate the roster in the summer. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Habs. But look, they're in their rebuild, Kate, and they're not shying away from it. They understand where they're at. I think fans are frustrated, but fans just want to win. They're very passionate over there.
Absolutely. Well, someone who wasn't shying away from it, Brady Tkachuk, addressed the situation in Ottawa. I
Yep.
mentioned earlier in the show just one game tonight. It's the Sens visiting the Canes, second of 3 meetings. Now, they lost 4-0 in the first meeting. I want, just for fun, your prediction. What is the final score in our one hot game tonight on tap?
The theme Thursday was goals, goals, goals. I'm going to go with goals, goals, goals tonight, at least for one team. I'm going 5-1 Carolina.
Okay, I'm going to follow that up with 3-1. And since I'll be in Canada next week, that would be a Tim Hortons on you if you lose, and vice versa. Deal?
Deal. That works.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave, as always. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's the latest on the fourth period, presented by CCM Hockey.